Welcome back. It's still Morning Rush on Metro Television. For the first part of today's conversation, we are looking at the gender transformative education, a tool for ending sexual and gender bias violence. And I have two guests here to tell us more about that, and I'll leave them to do the introduction, starting from the lady first.
Good morning. I'm Lois Eduamo Ado, and I'm with Women in Law and Development in Africa, World of Ghana.
Okay. And the gentleman.
My name is Kofi Asare. I'm with EduWatch.
Okay. So we are looking at the gender transformative education. What exactly is it?
Well, prior to the Sustainable Development Goals, all countries globally agreed to work towards ensuring that there is gender parity in our educational system. And by gender parity, the focus was mainly on the quantitatives to ensure that there's an equal proportion of girls to boys in basic and secondary schools. Globally, it's been seen that between the end of the Millennium Development Goals and from its beginning to its end, a lot of progress has been made. About 60 to 65% of countries were able to achieve gender parity in their basic education systems, which meant that there was significant progress, including Ghana. Ghana also achieved gender parity by 2015, 2016. However, stakeholders realized that beyond the quantitatives, beyond the equality, measures, including the GPI, it was very necessary to take a second look at certain factors, certain prohibitions within the school environment and around the school environment that continue to impinge on the ability of girls to develop in school, to participate, to complete, to transit, and to improve on their learning outcomes, and generally their development. Now, these prohibitions or inhibitions normally take the form of negative stereotypes and norms and attitudes and practices, both in school and around the school environment, including the community. And these factors work together against girls. It puts girls at the back burner, issues affecting them at the back burner, and rather projects boys. And to the extent that such norms, practices, attitudes, stereotypes, work against the interests of girls in school, it was necessary to shift the focus from just achieving gender parity to looking at the equity and inclusion aspect of girls' education. And so gender transformative education actually simply says that beyond just the quantitative, beyond the numbers, let's look at how the broad policies in education, broad pedagogies, I'm talking about how teaching is done in the classroom and how learning is done, teaching and learning approaches and methods, and also community attitudes can be changed, to support the transformation of education, putting girls' education at the forefront.
So it means it could be a game changer for the country at large. But Lois, let me ask you this. How important is it as Ghanaians? How is it going to impact our community? How is it going to change the mentality? Because we've been hammering on this whole conversation, girls being inclusive, girls being at the forefront, not only in the house, in the kitchen. How important is it for us as a country?
So I'll say that it's very important for us as a country, because if we really want to ensure that gender parity and equality, then we will need to really take this whole gender transformative education concept very seriously. Like he shared, we have come to realize that many girls are not able to access education. He has the figures, but many girls are not, even those who are able to access education, many drop out, are not able to go through to the tertiary and even to the other professional levels. We know that, our population, 51.7 is women, but they say now many ladies are graduating from school, but like he said, beyond the quantitative, we are looking at the quality, the performance of women. I mean, looking at the the ratio between men and women. Looking at that. How are women able to access all these opportunities? So if we're able to address we want to address that difference, then we will need to take the concepts of gender transformative education, the barriers that deny women and young girls access to education very seriously, so we can bridge the gap and ensure an environment that we are promoting gender equality and gender parity.
But Kofi, what is the state of the sexual gender violence rate in Ghana at the moment?
Well, within the school environment, where our focus is, and again, sexual violence is one of the key impediments to girls' retention and completion in school. And so even though we may have achieved gender parity at the national level and in majority of the regions, school-based sexual violence continues to limit, the sustenance of such parity to the extent that by the time girls cross to secondary school, boys overtake the numbers. And so one of the major factors that constricts girls' retention and completion, or if you like, survival rate within the basic education system is school-based gender violence.
Yeah.
We all know that teenage pregnancy is number one. Many schools are unsafe for girls because they end up getting pregnant when they are in school. Averagely about 7,000 are getting pregnant when they are in school. But we normally want to look at the school and around the school environment. Why am I saying so? Because within the school environment, government has an obligation to ensure that every girl who is within the school going age of, let's say, 4 to 15 is in school. That is the obligation of government and the mandate of the Ghana Education Service. So if that girl is getting pregnant and the girl lives in the community or in the school, it is still an obligation of government. Okay, according to the Ghana Health Service, 110,000 girls are getting pregnant every year. Between 2016 and 2020, 500,000 girls got pregnant. I'm talking about between 11 and then 19. These are teenagers who are supposed to be in school. Now, the number is quite lower for girls who are in school, that's about 7,000. But again, it tells us that our policies are not sufficiently preventing girls from getting pregnant. Our administrative procedures are not sufficiently preventing girls from getting pregnant. The school environment, the community environment, the attitudes of boys, girls, the attitudes of boys, women, and men, okay, are not supporting girls such that they don't get pregnant. And even when they get pregnant, the support they require from the community and stakeholders and from the school environment to re-enter school or enter school and complete their
Coming
education
back is difficult.
It's also limited. Now, once girls find themselves in such situations, then they find themselves in a disadvantaged situation compared to boys.
Boys.
Exactly. So, school-based gender violence is a major impediment to girls' survival and girls' development in school, and that is why, within the context of the gender transformative education, we see the need to transform policies, perceptions and attitudes and practices that work against or that make the school environment unsafe, and make the school environment more prone to being to girls' rights being violated, to change. And that is one, and that is why we are talking about GTE within the 16 days campaign.
That's how creating the awareness.
Exactly, because the 16 days campaign is a campaign against gender-based violence.
It has started already.
It is a global campaign that commences from 25th November to 10th December, and it is a period where globally we try to increase knowledge on issues bordering around sexual and gender-based violence. So it's called 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. And so today is the 9th.
Today is the 9th.
So tomorrow is the 10th. So we are ending, and we want to end with GTE.
Okay, but with the 16 days experience, how has it been so far? Yeah,
it's been very, this year we've seen a lot of stakeholders all commemorating this day. We commenced on the 25th with a major lunch with the Ministry of Gender, where we had various organizations making speeches on the various issues. Gender-based violence is from different phases, and today we are looking at GTE. So we had various organizations, international partners, all joining the Ministry of Gender to come up with what we expect to see an environment free from sexual and gender-based violence. We also had a walk through the principal street from Obrasport through the Makola Market and then to the Ministry of Gender. It was really very eventful and had continued with media engagement, had seminars, we had community even from here, I'm going to a community campaign in Oyibi. And I mean, this year we've really seen that kind of recognition of the 16 days and being commemorated by many organizations and media houses.
Before I come to Kofi finally, within the 16 days, that is the duration, the awareness is more, you increase to get stakeholders on board.
Yeah.
Afterwards, how are things done?
We continue with, you know, we are undertaking a number of projects.
Okay.
So we continue, also use other international days. Like March, we have International Women's Day. So we will also take advantage
of that day.
But I mean, beyond international days, we still have events on sexual and gender-based, where we undertake researches, we do community campaigns, undertake trainings. So the 16 days is just the campaign period where we increase visibility, where we come on TV. But beyond that, the trainings, the researches, they continue. Capacity building, they continue. Training ambassadors, we continue.
That's a very good one.
Yeah.
But then, Kofi, how do we ensure, as Ghanaians, as a collective, to make sure that we adapt to the GTE?
Well, we are taking a systematic approach at that. And as you rightly asked, beyond the 16 days, how do we ensure that whatever message we are propagating as part of the 16 days gets mainstreamed into policy and practice? So at EduWatch, we were funded from Oxfam, and in partnership with FOSDA, we have commissioned a gender transformative education assessment of Ghana's pre-tertiary education system. It's a research currently taking place in the northern region and also in the OT region. By early January, the research report should be ready, and we are doing this research with the endorsement of the Ghana Education Service. The idea is that we want to find out exactly where the gaps are, what are the loopholes, and how can we plug such loopholes within the context of adapting a gender transformative education policy. And so when the gender transformative education assessment report is ready, we're going to have stakeholder engagement around the policy, the report, based on which, after validation, a draft policy will be developed out of the assessment with the aim of strengthening, and enhancing the effectiveness of our systems and policies, administrative practices, etc., to make them gender transformative. So it's a whole process.
It's a whole process.
Yeah, within a 3 to 5 year program being supported by Oxfam.
Okay, that's a very good one, and we wish you all the best. Okay, so we've been having a very wonderful conversation on gender transformative education, a tool for ending sexual and gender-based violence in Ghana. Thank you very much for coming through.